Hey, pals. This is Kyle coming to you from WP Roundtable episode 178. I'm here in Jackson, Michigan at my new house. This is pretty fun. And I'm joined by a very special guest today, Michelle Ames. How are you, Michelle?
Well, I feel even better now that you called me a special guest. I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
I've been looking forward to our conversation
Yeah,
for a
me
while
too.
now. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's always fun to talk to you, Michelle. You have so much wisdom and valuable experience and
Well,
such a wonderful personality. You're a person who's just always charming and friendly. I am looking forward to everything that we're going to talk about today. There are so many things. You have a lot of interests and
yeah.
you participate in a lot of different things. We're going to try and touch on a lot of it.
Awesome.
Before we dive into your background, I'll say that Michelle works for a company called GiveWP. Or WordImpress is the company.
Word
GiveWP
impressed.
is the product, the primary product, at least, that you work on at this time.
Yeah.
Then we're going to get into your background in a minute. Before we do so, let's share our quick picks of the week. This is where each
Okay.
of us drops something that we think is useful and worthy of sharing with the world. I
Okay.
got a good one for you here. Are you ready?
Better not be the same as mine. Don't take my answer.
Right here. Quick pick of the week. It's a book,
I have one of those, but that wasn't my answer. So
a physical book written by our very own Michelle Ames. It showed up at my house recently, and I've really been enjoying it. There's a lot of good, valuable business insight here. The book is called A Good Firm Handshake and Other Essential Business Tips. Lots of awesome topics in here about finding focus, finding your tribe, growth hacking, and managing your business and networking and website stuff. A lot of good stuff in here, Michelle. I really am impressed. And thank you for sending me a copy.
you're welcome. I hope you enjoy it.
I will. And I am.
Good, good, good.
So where could people find that if they want to, Michelle?
It's on Amazon in both the hard format and the Kindle version.
How exciting. That's super cool. So go to Amazon and look for a Good Firm Handshake. Check it out. I recommend it. Michelle, do you have something to share today?
So I do. It's a little self-serving, but over at WordImpress, we just launched a brand new product called WP Business Reviews. And if you go to WPBusinessReviews.com, you can find an amazing plugin developed by our own group of guys led by Kevin Hoffman over in Pittsburgh. I think you know Kevin.
I do. Yeah.
And
He was a guest not that long ago.
so this product just pulls in your business reviews from Facebook, Google Business, Yelp, and aggregates them on your website. So it's a pretty cool, pretty slick product, and I'm enjoying supporting that product as well.
Yeah, that looks like something that has not ever been even close to well solved in WordPress yet. But I've encountered in my agency days many situations where something like that was necessary, but no solution was available because it's quite complicated. It's tough. Well, I wish all the best with the new product.
Well,
and I think WP Business Reviews looks really solid. And the people behind it can't get much better.
They're good people.
Yeah. All right. So those are our quick picks. Everybody check out A Good Firm Handshake and WP Business Reviews. Now let's talk about you, Michelle. I want to dive into your background if we could. So anybody who doesn't know your full life story, well, they can get the privilege of having heard it straight from you. Now, the story that I want is a little bit more about your career path, essentially. And if you don't mind, start around the time when, for the first time, you started to have some inkling of a vision for your future, something serious, something you were ready to act on, a plan for the future, Michelle. And how did you take those first steps on that path that you thought was right for you?
So working with WordPress is actually my second career. My first career was about 20 plus years in higher education. And I started working there when I got laid off from the job that I was doing, actually working for my father's company, believe it or not. Sometimes family's the first ones to go. And so I was working at my dad's company and was using a product called WordPerfect. You young kids probably never heard of it, but it's the precursor to Word, I think. It was supported by a magazine that actually came to your physical location. So I got a magazine in the mail about the software that I was using. And decided that that was pretty cool. I was writing macros, keyboard stroke macros for use in WordPerfect, and thought that was pretty fun. But then I got laid off, went to work for a company, college, local college, and spent the next 20 years working in higher education. During that time, I learned a little bit about just, computers. I love how my mom will say, like, you do the computer stuff. I'm like, yeah, it's a website.
I still get that too.
Websites are computer stuff. But yeah, so doing all kinds of different computer stuff over the years, working with databases, working with registration systems, that kind of thing. And then in my last job that I was working in, I was doing a lot more with the website because I was running a local college, a local a massage school, actually. Wow. I got a little bit more involved with their marketing. By that time, I already had my MBA in marketing, e-commerce, and information systems, even though I didn't know what to do with any of that kind of thing. So I started working in the massage school and putting all those things, my background there to use. And then I hated it there. It was a horrible environment. It was a massage school. It was the most toxic place I've ever worked, and left there to start my own company. And I didn't know what I was going to do, actually. At the time, I thought I'd go back to work for somebody else in a college or elsewhere. I posted on Facebook, hey, I'm taking a month off of work. If anybody needs help with social media or a website, look me up. I could do some things in the meantime. And by the end of 2 weeks, I had so many clients that I realized I had a business. And so at that point in time, I said, that's it. In about 5 minutes, I developed a logo, named my company after myself, which is a big mistake. Don't do that. And it makes it harder to hire people not named Michelle when you're named a company marketed by Michelle. But it worked for 5 years. I got a little lonely, though, working by myself. And I didn't like having to be the person that did everything. I didn't like collections. I didn't like going after people for money. And although I loved meeting with people to get new clients and to learn about what they did and how I could help them with web design and other marketing, it left little time to actually get the work done. So I was working 18 to 20-hour weeks or days sometimes, 60, 80 or more hours a week. And it was starting to really take a toll on me. And so I met up with the guys from Give up in Ottawa last summer, and I mentioned to them, they interviewed me for their blog for a site that I built. And I'm like, hey, if you were ever looking for people to work for you, your company is one of the ones I'd consider working for. And by January, I had a full-time job with Give.
That's so great.
That's what's great about the WordPress community, is that it's huge, it's enormous, but it's tight-knit. And because we all work on the computer, we get to be able to interface with people all over the world. Makes it a very small world in a very large place.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. That's really cool. So they were acquainted with you. You were acquainted with them. You were at this point pretty integrated into the community itself. So you knew all about them and other cool companies in this space.
Yeah.
Enough. And a little bit about the thought process, like the evolution of you starting to think that maybe I'm ready to make a change, because I went through the same thing too. And it was your story kind of echoes what I went through.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where you realize you're getting up, you're going to work at 8 o'clock in the morning, you're getting home at 2, 3, or 4 in the morning sometimes. I didn't work from home. I don't work from home. I find it incredibly distracting to have HBO and cats and laundry in the same space that I work. So I rent an office and I get up and I go to work. But I would be stumbling home at 3 or 4 in the morning, bleary-eyed from having worked an entire 15 or 16-hour day. And that really, I'm going to be 50 next month. That takes a toll on a girl, So yeah, I was getting tired. So it was time. It was time to think about doing something else and not just necessarily working on my own, but being part of something bigger. I realized that I think any one of us in the world has the ability to impact and to change the world on some level. And it has to start with your connections and where you are. And for me, that was WordPress and being able to, I don't want to say infiltrate, but kind of grow from where I am in the WordPress community and maybe go a little bit bigger. And so looking at some of the ways to be able to do that, it just clicked when I was sitting there with Jason being interviewed for their blog that this might be some place that I'd have a fit and this would be a good fit for me. Luckily, they thought the same.
Yeah, definitely. I like how you conclude your description with sounding more like this change for you is a positive one, in the sense that you're looking to gain something that you want that you don't have, as opposed to making a change because you're trying to get away from something you don't want, which I think
Right.
this way is always better.
Right. Always move toward the positive, not just away from the negative, right?
Right.
It's all
Yeah.
about growth. It's about what you can do and what you can learn, and how, for me, it's always been about how I can have an impact on the world and how I can help other people. I always feel the sense of obligation that, to whom much is given, much is expected.
Yeah.
And so I've had an opportunity to learn a lot. I have the opportunity to do and to benefit others. And so I want to be able to do that in the best, most efficient way possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I can absolutely relate, and that resonates with me a lot. At the same time, are there things that you just like don't miss? Like you wake up and like, oh, I'm so glad I don't have to.
Oh, I have fired clients. That was the best part, right? So, like, I have all of these personal clients, and I've been able to whittle that list down to the people that I truly, number one, I truly enjoy working with. Number two, pay me. And number three, pay me on time for the work that I do for them.
Is that too much to ask?
I know, right? And even the ones that paid me well and paid me on time, if they were a real pain in the rear end to work for, I don't have to work for them anymore. And I could help them transition to working with somebody else, but in a positive way, So,
Wow.
and they might be a better fit with somebody else.
Sure. Sure.
How's
That's great.
that for an answer?
No, did you ever have a nightmare project? One that, it wasn't anything but funny at the
Yeah.
time, but now you kind of laugh about.
Well, so I give a lot of WordPress talks, and this year I started one called "Use Your WordPress Powers for Good," and I talk about the fact that WordPress powers like over 29% of the internet now. We're working on almost a third of the internet, and that it's free, right? It's open source. It's an amazing gift that we all get, but what do you do with the gift? You don't want to return this gift. And so the first slide says, well, what do we do with it? We build websites. And the second slide says, and sometimes they're really, really bad. And the third slide says, but we make money anyway. Except for the very first website that I ever took on as a client, personal client. It was a woman who had seen another site that I was working on. And she said, I want it to be exactly like that one. First of all, red flag, because they're never exactly like that one.
Now you know.
Now
Yeah.
I know. The end result, first of all, the site that she wanted had e-commerce. The site that she was modeling it after didn't have e-commerce, right? And so I thought, I was just starting out. I thought, oh, I could crank that out in a week, right? I could just do that in a week. How much? I don't need to charge that much. If I could do 3 to 5 sites a week, I don't know what I was thinking.
Oh my goodness.
I could be raking in the dough. So she's like, well, how much would you charge me? So I was like, $300. And then she said, well, it has to have e-commerce. I was like, well, $500. And I probably worked 100 hours on that site. I paid in blood, sweat, and tears for that education. But I learned so much. Would I do it differently now? Well, of course, in retrospect, I would. But on the other hand, I really did learn a lot. It was truly an education, not only in how to price projects, but I learned of the different kinds of things that customers would request and that they would need. And I learned about scope. And so for me, that project taught me so much right at the very beginning, and that was invaluable. But yeah, that was the project the project from hell.
I am and always have been a big proponent of education, and I do remember not so many years ago where I was in college and I was spending late nights working on essays and preparing for exams and finishing stressful homework at hard classes to get my degree. And that time was so similar to the experiences that I had in my early freelancing and agency days, building things that were over my head, projects that I shouldn't have said yes to. And it almost feels like those early nightmare client projects are like the new college class in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That was the education that made an impact for me.
I read something once that said, say yes and learn how to do it. And to some extent, that's really valuable advice. And to the other extent, it's like, but you still can't learn everything and know how to do everything. So say yes to things that are within your learning levels and then learn how to do them. But don't say yes to things that you absolutely have no idea how to even begin with. So
Right. Yeah, there's a weird, difficult to find balance there, because I think that putting pressure on ourselves with it, like by saying yes to something that's a little bit beyond our current capabilities, is really great. It pushes us. Sometimes I will intentionally propose talks to events that are far enough out on topics that I don't really understand quite that well yet, because that will force me to master it in that time period. And it's really great. And I unintentionally did that over and over and over throughout my time consulting.
I'm giving a Gutenberg talk in about a month and a half, and guess who hasn't really played with Gutenberg yet? But I can learn Gutenberg in a month and a half, so
I think you'll do just fine.
I think so. It'll be good.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So now catch us up to today. Let's get the full scope of what it is that you do at Give.
I love my job at Give. So I do more than just Give. Like you said, I support all of our products. So we have some products under the WordPress umbrella. Primarily, though, it's the new one, WP Business Reviews, and the Give product. When I was hired in as the implementation partner manager. I said, that is the most boring title in the history of titles. What could we call me instead? And so we had a conversation about what it is that my department would do, and the idea that we are those that push forward to help our customers be successful.
Yeah.
So my title changed very quickly to Head of Customer Success. I started January 2nd. I hired my first employee for Give, March, first part of March, and I just hired another employee 2 weeks ago. And so we are the customer success team and customer success coordinator, and we have somebody now who's working as an account recovery specialist, and working to reconnect those subscriptions for customers whose credit cards might have expired, et cetera, to make sure that they continue to have the support and the access that they need. And so what we do is we decided we were going to carve this out. This department never existed. I don't think very many WordPress companies do what we do, but we ask for a phone number when somebody buys our product, and we call them. So if you buy, Give today, one of our add-ons, Give itself is free, of course, in the repository, but our add-ons are out there. And if you buy one of our add-ons today, tomorrow you're going to get a phone call from one of us saying, hey, welcome to the Give community, welcome to the Give family. We want to make sure that you feel supported. Do you have any questions about implementation? And here's my phone number, and here's my email address, and here's the link. I'm going to send you a link if you want to set up a time to do a demo so that I can show you how to use what you just bought.
Wow.
Yeah, it's going really well.
That's a lot. And that's a lot of stuff that other similar companies are not doing.
Right.
Were you involved in the early process where all of these ideas, which are not typical for our industry, were proposed and argued about and ultimately implemented?
So I will say Jason Cannell, who is my immediate supervisor and one of the partners at WordPress, I think it really was his brainchild. And when he and I talked about some of the things that we could do, he got real excited. And we used a lot of my background, his background in sales, my background in working in higher education, in recruiting, and that kind of thing, in ways that we could move this company forward using some of those tools, which is calling people, following up, making sure that people feel supported and understand how to use the product going forward. So I will definitely say it was his brainchild, but I'm happy to be part of it and to contribute towards the ideas that make it work.
Wow. Okay. And you're still pretty actively involved in the WordPress community.
Very much so.
Yeah. Yeah. What sort of different things are you involved in? I know meetups, WordCamps, speaking,
Pretty much that. Meetups, WordCamp, and speaking.
Yeah.
I organize the meetup here in Rochester, New York. We have 2 meetups. Once a month, we meet for a regular meetup, and then every other month we have an advanced meetup. I don't feel myself to be advanced, so I make sure I find other people who can speak on those advanced topics. I'm not a coder, for example. I know CSS and HTML, and everything beyond that is a little bit outside of my comfort zone. I founded the first WordCamp Rochester. So we've had 2 years. We're having our third WordCamp here next month in Rochester. And I've also been part of the organizing team for WordCamp Buffalo. I love the guys out there. Good team. And this last spring, we had our very first ever Rochester WordPress hackathon, where we got 18 people in the same room in the same day with 3 different nonprofit organizations. They started with nothing in the morning, and by the end of the day, they each had a website powered by Give, I might say. Give was, generous and donated a plugin for the year for them to be able to start using for donations. And each one of those nonprofits walked away at the end of the day with something that they could put out in their social media, put out to their constituents, and raise money for their sites or for their organizations to start raising money online and have a presence in the community.
Wow. I love that. I've had conversations about those kinds of things before, and I've seen people do presentations describing how these types of events work, and they're not terribly uncommon, but I've never had the privilege of participating in one, and I've always been highly intrigued about how they go together and how you can pull one off successfully. First, how do you get involved in it? And then, what was it like putting it together?
So that's a great question. So I had never even heard of them before. About 2.5 years ago, I'm also part of an organization called Girl Develop It. And I don't know if you've heard of them. Yep.
Yeah,
So Girl Develop It in Buffalo, I've actually been more involved within the Rochester location. And they were teaching some WordPress classes. They needed a TA. And I said, hey, I'll come out for the weekend and TA the class because I wanted to see how other people teach WordPress. I mean, I know how I teach it, but I wanted to see how could I do it better. So I went out for the weekend. I became part of the Girl Develop It Buffalo team and got invited back to their hackathon. And they do a hackathon where they have 10 organizations, and they're startup organizations usually, who could use a hand up. They had over 100 people there building 10 websites, and I was there to teach the website owners about social media, about some different things, how to run their site, things like that afterwards. And by the end of the day, there were 10 organizations with 10 websites working forward. There was competition involved. They raised a little bit of money. They won something at the end of the day for their organization, and the team won something. I thought that is really cool. We should do that in Rochester. So I said, hey, let's do this in Rochester. Who wants to help? Got a couple of people to help me kind of get ideas. Found a location. Somebody donated the space. Raised a little bit of money to pay for food, and set up a website where organizations could sign up to be the recipients of their new websites, and then had people pay $10 to sit at the tables that day. That helped pay for food too. And by the end of the day, we had 3 websites and everybody was happy and healthy, and they all left feeling good about themselves and contributing in a really positive way. So it was mostly getting the word out. That was the hard part, is posting it all over social media, calling different people that might be involved with nonprofit organizations, because most nonprofits have somebody started a website for them. But as you and I usually know, it's usually somebody's nephew, and it's not necessarily the best site going forward. So the bottom line was they could have a website already, but it had to be something that could be improved upon. So we had one organization had no website, another was on Wix, and another one didn't really have anything to start with. They had started something on a blog, but it wasn't actually a site, so to speak. So I required that each one have a domain name purchased and have hosting purchased, because that was a stumbling block in previous hackathons I'd been at. If they didn't have those things, it's really hard for a team to start working. And so we got them. I divided people up by their ability level. So every table had kind of a spectrum of WordPress knowledge and ability. So it wasn't a whole table full of newbies and a whole table full of developers. And because that's important, right? Because there are people sitting at the table who've never logged into a site, but they can still be helpful. They can find content. They can find free images. They can work that way. And so I had people doing that. I had at least one developer was sitting at every table, and everybody in between, and then one person from the organization. who could make decisions, who could say, yes, that fits our message. No, that doesn't. And could help move the team forward throughout the day. And then I had people come in as judges at the end of the day. They presented the sites, and the winning team won a $100 gift card to Amazon for their organization.
Wow.
So it gave and we actually had people remotely working in too. So I had somebody who wanted to come in from Buffalo. They couldn't be here. So he Skyped in all day. He was working from his computer, part of the conversation at that table, but you didn't even have to physically be present to be able to be helpful.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's
so we'll
great.
do another one. Yeah, we're going to do another one next spring.
Okay. How many people were participating in putting this together besides yourself?
There were 3 of us that were organizing.
Okay. Wow. It sounds like a lot of work.
It wasn't as much work as I thought. The hardest part was finding a location and then getting the word out. Everything else pretty much fell together.
Sure. Is that something you think you might continue in the future?
Yeah, we're definitely going to do it for another year and see if it grows a little bit. I figure you should try everything twice, right? See if if success was fleeting, or if it's something that has, can gain legs and continue to grow. But it was a lot of fun. It was exhausting, of course, but it was a lot of fun. It was very exciting to watch people feel really good about contributing too.
So that would not fall under the umbrella of any larger network or organization which does like template these sorts of events nationally, because there are others which do have a model that is repeated and maybe a central governing body for them. But this was a completely independent.
I didn't know about them beforehand. I just decided to make my own thing and go with it.
Sure. Okay.
So yeah, maybe we'll, join up with one of those bigger communities, especially if they have a little money to throw towards it.
Oh, yeah, there you go. That can relieve a lot of stress.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. So you participate in the local meetups, Girl Develop It, the hackathon, the word camps, teaching classes.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people that will come to me and say, hey, can you show me how to do this? Or hey, can you show me how to do that? And I love paying it forward. I will take some time. I will mentor people. I've had interns in my office before for a semester. I've brought people in just to mentor them, help them out that way. But sometimes it's easier just to hold a class, do an 8-hour, immersive, where people start with nothing. At the end of the day, they have the bones of a website to be able to go forward with. So I do an 8-hour WordPress class. I charge people $100 a day for the day. I find a location that I can rent that won't suck the whole tuition out of my bank account, and spend the day teaching how to build a WordPress website from the ground up.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
It is great. So this fall, I'm going to start doing some additional classes. I'm going to do a class on CSS and child themes. So that's going to be a full day on CSS and child themes. And I'm going to do a day on Gutenberg and editing. And I'm also going to teach how to use some of the different editors that are out there, like Divi and Elementor, WP Bakery, things like that, and how those work.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's pretty cool. So you said that your next talk is going to be about Gutenberg. Is that right?
Yeah, locally. I'm going to do something on Gutenberg, yeah.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Did you intentionally propose that because you want to learn it or force yourself to, or do you just think it's necessary and nobody else stepped up?
I think it's both, actually. So I put out surveys in our Facebook group for the local WordPress community to find out what people are interested in learning about. And Gutenberg's up there because people are afraid of it, right? They don't know what's coming. And I mean, I know enough not to be afraid. But rather than asking somebody else to teach it, if I want to learn it well and be able to answer questions on the topic for people, then teaching it and learning it more in depth is the way to do that. So it's really both.
Wow. Yeah. That's so amazing. You spend a lot of time focused on just community contributions and education from the sounds of it. Like, how can you do it?
I'm a serial volunteer.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I only have cats at home, so there's nobody, no little kids or whatever. My daughter's 26. She lives in another city, so I don't have anybody at home saying, "Where are you? I need dinner." So that helps. You put that food in a cat's bowl. They're good for a couple hours.
Right. That sounds nice. To be able to just choose to invest in the things you're passionate about.
Exactly. And I realized early on in my life that I don't need a lot. I don't have to be rich. I just need to be able to pay my bills, and the rest is gravy. So if I can use my time to do something I enjoy, I don't have to make money at it if it's something I enjoy doing. And so helping out with volunteer organizations is one of those things. I don't think I told you I'm also I'm on my school board in my town, finishing up 12 years as a school board member. This is my last year. I figure 12 years is enough. It's somebody else's turn. But, as a school board member, you don't get paid for the time that you put into it, but you give back to your community. Mm-hmm. So I give back to my local community through a school board and Chamber of Commerce, things like that. And then I give back to my WordPress community by speaking at camps and organizing the WordPress meetups and maybe doing a hackathon here or there.
Wow. I know many people who have done far less and gotten completely burned out and like had to dial it down big time. Like you're sustaining quite a high volume of output and just like being incredibly generous with your time. And there are so many other things that you could get passionate about that are more self-serving. You know, I don't know, you could go fishing or get into knitting or skydiving or traveling or something.
Well, so I do travel though with WordPress because I go to these different WordCamps, and so I get to meet people and I get to go to different cities for that. So that kind of gets my wanderlust a little bit, right? But wanderlust with a purpose. I go someplace and I meet people, and it's not entirely selfless. A lot of come to me because of my community involvement with WordPress. So, you run a WordPress meetup long enough, people come and they say, "Wow, this looks a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. Can I just hire you to make my website?" Yes, but it's going to cost more than $300. So I've gotten clients out of it in the past. And then, I mean, if you think about it, I wouldn't be working where I'm working today if I hadn't taken that path in WordPress to put me to the point where I felt comfortable speaking, to put me to the point where I felt comfortable traveling to another city, to be sitting at the table with Jason Cannell and say, "By the way, if you're ever hiring, I'd be interested." And so all of that I've done with WordPress has brought me to where I am today. Wouldn't trade a thing. That's
great. Yeah, I love that story. And I know myself and so many others would tell it similarly. Sometimes it feels like I'm putting in a lot. Sometimes it feels like it's hard for me to get out to another meetup tonight or to prep another talk or to put in these extra hours after work, putting this WordCamp together. But then if I really think hard about it, have I put in yet more than I got?
Right.
Have I helped more people than the number of people who helped me when I was getting started and I didn't know up versus down? No, I'm not there yet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We can help as many people as we can, but you're right. I feel like I've gotten so much more than I've ever given.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. Are there other things that maybe you've wanted to do that you're looking to try and do maybe more of, or for the first time in the future, kind of in this vein?
Well, I'm still waiting to hear if my talk's going to be accepted for WordCamp US.
Oh, yeah. When are they going to announce those?
I don't know, but I'd be so excited if my name was on that list, And if it's not, there's always next year. I'll keep trying.
Sure. They get a lot of applicants.
Oh, that's what I hear. That's what I hear.
Yeah.
But that would be exciting. So that's something that's kind of on my bucket list. I'll tell you what, one of the things that's also on my bucket list is to speak at a TED Talk. I would love to give a TED Talk.
Wow.
I find them truly inspirational, whether it's TEDx and it's a local talk or whether it's the real TED, to me, that would be phenomenal. That's something that I would love to do. I call it my living list because there's things I want to do while I'm still living, not thinking about kicking the bucket, so to speak.
Yeah. I've never heard anybody say that before, but it's so great.
Yeah. I've done a lot of things on my living list, So I conducted an orchestra. I wanted to marry people, so I actually became an officiant, and I perform weddings. I actually married Amanda, who works for me, to her husband last fall.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I've known her for 10 years, and it was so cool to preside over her wedding. But I want to deliver a baby, so that's like on my list. I'm hoping someday that I'll be like, there's a taxi pulled over, and they'll like flag me down, and do you know how to deliver a baby? And I'll say, as a matter of fact, I do. I used to be an EMT. Let me at it, you know.
Wow.
It's fun stuff, right? So yeah, so life's big, but it's short, and so I want to live to the fullest and do all those different things that I possibly can do, and make the most out of them.
Wow. I am so inspired.
Huh. I always wanted to write a book, and look, I did that. So
You did write a book.
I know, isn't that cool?
That is on like probably so many other people's bucket/living list. Write a book. Yeah. But you did it. Gosh.
I know. Last year, I was driving up to WordCamp, Portland, Maine, and my best friend was with me. And she had just written a book. She was still in the final editing. I was doing a final proofread through it for her. We're driving in the car up there, and I said, I'm so envious. It's always been on my list to write a book. And you did it. I'm so proud of you. And I'm so envious at the same time. She says, well, so do it. I said, I don't know what I'd write about. She said, well, of course you do. You've practically written it already. I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. But I used to blog for our local newspaper before they shut down their blogging. And I was a business blogger for them. She said, take those blog posts, turn them into chapters, and you have a book. It took me about a year to work through that, but I did. So I got rid of the ones that were like, the ones I phoned in, so to speak. Yeah. The ones I really liked, I expanded on and added more content to. Wrote a couple additional chapters of things that I thought were important to kind of glue it all together, and published it. So, wow. Yeah, anybody can. It's just a matter of feeling confident enough to do it, I think.
Sure. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So if you can blog, you can write a book.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, that's really inspiring. I love how you are making incredible progress through your living list, and that there is still more on it. And all of that is incredibly cool. And if there's anybody capable of achieving those, you have demonstrated yourself to be somebody who might pull it all off.
Oh, thanks.
And, that's cool and inspiring. Makes me want to work a little bit harder on my own, I think. Yeah. Okay. So what else is happening work-wise these days? What are some of the big challenges you guys are trying to overcome, and how are you involved in some of those?
So, I guess marketing is always a challenge, right? There's a lot of people in the marketplace, and getting your voice heard is always one of those things that's kind of trying to figure out where your placehold is and how to make sure people know about you. Because as big a name as Give is in WordPress and in the nonprofit WordPress community, there's people I'll introduce us to and they've never heard of us. And so just kind of making sure that people know who we are and that we are a good solution and a free solution for them to get started with is always fun. But of course, it's always a challenge. Marketing is a challenge for any organization. One of the ways that I try to help is I write a lot of blog posts now for the Give blog. And just sometimes just based on my own experiences. So, I implemented Give on my church's website. So I'd like to write a blog post on how Give works for religious organizations. I'm actually running for office right now. I don't know if I told you that, but
of course you are, Michelle.
I'm running for county legislator here in Monroe County in New York. I'm in right outside of Rochester, New York. And I've got Give on my campaign page to try to raise campaign funds. And so I wrote an article for our blog on how you can use Give for managing campaign funds. I wrote one on how different ideas that you can use for back to school fundraising, instead of turning our children into little salespeople knocking on every door selling every little tchotchke, how to do that in an online way that makes it fun. So what can you do to make online giving fun, and how can you inspire people to do that? So I enjoy writing. I love writing. Obviously, I wrote a book, right? But to be able to write just not for my own self and my own sense of humor, but to be able to pay it forward through the Give community through some of my writing is always fun too.
Sure.
And I love it when Taylor posts our stuff on Twitter and tags me in it, and I see people liking what we do. I mean, there's a little hubris in me, it's kind of fun to see that and to see your name up there and to feel a little bit proud about that.
Of course. Well, Give is like been an amazing product and a cool company doing great things, like growing uh, fast over a short period of time, hiring really great people, putting out just high quality stuff that's just inspiring all the rest of us. So it's kind
Exciting
of
to be
cool
part
to
of
be
it.
involved. Yeah, I can imagine it would be really fun to be
Yeah.
involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's I love that you were able to talk to them directly and just say, plant the seed and say, like, you are on my list. I would be, I have identified the places I'm willing to go work, and you're up there. I was in a
So
similar position too.
here's the secret they don't know is they were the only ones on the list.
Oh, wow.
If they see this, they'll know that now, but they were the only ones on the list. So
Oh, that's funny.
is that how you ended up where you are today too then?
I mean, it's close. I wouldn't say this is the only company that on my list. We're in a cool industry, and there are a lot of businesses doing amazing things. Where I felt like, I could maybe make an impact and use what little talent I have in a positive way. But I definitely am thrilled that the first place, the top place on my list, turned out to be the right one.
That's awesome.
Yeah, all around good. And we have a lot in common. These WordImpress and Sandhills Development, and we're kind of friendly neighbors in the space, I suppose.
Absolutely, we use your product, so.
Yeah.
Awesome.
There are more than a few cases where we have to refer people to Give. I mean, I recommend it all the time at meetups and WordCamps.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Do you guys ever have opportunities to get together as a team?
That's great. It's a great question. So when I first had said I would join the team, I was slated to join them in January, but it was still December. So I drove to Nashville, Tennessee. It was a 15-hour drive from where I live, and met up with the team down there. And so I got to meet, Matt Cromwell, Devin Walker. I knew Jason Canill already, and I got to meet Kevin Hoffman and Ben Meredith down there. So there were just 5 of them from the team there last year. There's going to be 10 of us there at WordCamp US this year. That's how much we've been growing.
Wow.
It's phenomenal. And so I actually was able to go to WordCamp San Diego this year. And the 6 of us that were there last year, we were all at speakers and at WordCamp San Diego. And so I got to speak there this year and be part of the group. And we had a team retreat. So that was kind of fun to see headquarters and do that. So yeah, so WordCamp San Diego is a company retreat, and then so is WordCamp US. So there's gonna be 10 of us in a huge, amazing mansion that they rented for us. An Airbnb, you can find anything on Airbnb.
Yeah.
So all 10 of us gonna stay in a place in Nashville.
Oh, that's great. That sounds like a good time.
Yeah, for sure. You gonna be there?
Of course I'm going to be there.
All right,
yeah, wouldn't miss it.
You'll have to come see our mansion.
Well, all right. Well, that sounds like a fun thing to do. I'm a big proponent of getting the remote teams together pretty on the regular,
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a good thing to do.
So we have weekly hangouts where we have a quick meeting, an hour-long meeting, and touch base with each other and see faces and that kind of thing. But to get together in a physical space is just always fun.
Wow. Okay. Nice. I think that there's some value to that too.
Mm-hmm.
It's tricky. It feels at times to me like we're still in the kind of early juvenile days of the remote work thing, and we're still kind of figuring it out. And there's a lot of things that we haven't truly mastered yet, or really even fully appreciated the consequences or potential downsides to. So remote work will evolve. Still has some maturity ahead.
Well, there was that, 3 or 4 hour period earlier this year when Slack went down.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
The great Slack blackout of 2018. And we all felt like we were like, oh my God, we can't talk to our team. What are we going to do?
I know.
I think I'm friends with them on Facebook. Message them.
That's true. We were all resorting to things like that, getting text messages and Skype messages, like what? But I started my business before Slack, and I honestly don't even remember what it was like. How did we even communicate? We must have emailed each other a lot, I guess.
Can you imagine how many emails we'd send today if we were looking at Slack as our model for communication via email?
It surprises me just how inconceivable that sounds, like running a business like that.
Absolutely.
And yet we did somehow. It wasn't even long ago.
No, I know.
It's really so weird. It's so weird.
It is. Yeah, no, I love how communication is today.
Yeah.
How easy it is to communicate with people. And it's funny because somebody on our team is Sam Smith. I don't know if you know Sam Smith. He's down in Orlando.
So. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yep. So Sam's awesome. Great sense of humor. Awesome guy. Worked with him for 4 months via Slack. Basically, he's on our support team. I'm on the success team, and so I'd have to ping him with questions and vice versa. We were both at WordCamp Boston, and it was the first time I'd ever met him face to face, and it was just like I was re-greeting an old friend, because even though I'd never been at the same table with him, it's like we'd never been apart as far as friends go. So that was pretty cool.
That is cool. I love those moments.
Me too.
It's such a privilege to be a part of that. One of your other passions is photography.
I love taking my camera out.
Yeah. That's a cool hobby. Have you ever done anything beyond just pictures for your own enjoyment?
Oh yeah. So I have a side business.
Of course you do.
I have a side business called Click Happy Designs. ClickHappyDesigns.com if you're interested. But I do a lot of photography locally. I've done some weddings. I do a lot of portrait photography, headshots, children's photography, that kind of thing. Engagement photos, pregnancy photos, that kind of fun stuff.
Wow.
But for fun, I take the camera out and shoot nature. So we have a couple of nature preserves around this area. Montezuma's Wildlife Refuge is about an hour away, and it takes about an hour to drive through it. But the birds and things that you can see and photograph there are phenomenal. And I don't have the highest end camera. I don't have the sharpest zoom lens, but I still get some pretty decent photography out of it. And I really find it to be really enjoying.
Wow.
Give me a lot of joy. It's fun stuff.
Yeah. Well, it looks like you have some really nice stuff up there. Nature. Where do you go to shoot this nature?
So I live 3 miles south of Lake Ontario, and Lake Ontario, if you've never been there, is huge. It feels like you're at the edge of a very calm ocean because you can't see across it, right? You can't see either end when you stand in the middle. You can see Toronto sometimes at a very clear, very dark night. You can see the lights of Toronto shining across.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's about 40 miles across the river, or across the lake. But just driving up and down along the lake, you see a lot of really cool stuff. I've got some beautiful sunsets over the lake. Great birds. Coyote. I photographed a coyote last summer that was just not too far from my neighborhood. And then I'll just go to places like parks, and I'll say to somebody, "Hey, your dog's cute. Can I take its picture?" I'll hand out my card and say, "You can download it from my Instagram later if you're interested." And even people's kids and stuff. "Hey, can I, take some picture of your kids? You can get it on Instagram later."
Wow.
So, yeah, it's kind of fun.
Yeah, that does sound really fun.
It's a ton of fun, actually. Yeah, I love taking my camera out and just see what I can do with it.
Nice.
Yeah.
A
little extra money here and there never hurts too.
No, it doesn't. In fact, that's totally true. I've got a few more kind of wrap-up questions for you. Let's see. I know that you're going to WordCamp US, but like as far as anything else where people might bump into you in person, what's on your calendar?
I will be at WordCamp Rochester on October 13th, 2 days before I turn 50. First ever WordCamp Rochester was on my birthday. I'll tell you what, the best birthday party ever is getting WordPress to pay for 50 to 100 of your closest friends to come out for drinks afterwards.
That works out.
Okay, so my closest friends are in WordPress. You know that now. After that, WordCamp US, I'm probably going to go to WordCamp Ottawa when they get it on the schedule. That's supposed to be sometime in November. And WordCamp Toronto will be the first weekend in December, so I'll probably be there too. Those are real close driving wise. I can get there under 6 hours.
They're doing their WordCamp on the first weekend of December?
They are. They are.
How curious. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I'll tell you more later.
Okay. Great.
But yes,
Great.
they are.
Yeah.
So yeah, so those are the places that I'll definitely be in the next couple months.
That's super cool. Well, at least one of those I'll bump into you at. And we'll get to hang out, catch up a
For
little
sure.
bit.
Look forward to it.
Do you have any good recommendations of guests that I should have on this show in the future?
I'm sure I do. I hadn't thought about that in advance, so coming up with them off the top of my head isn't necessarily the easiest. I would say Jason Cannell is a brilliant business person. Has he been on your show?
No, he actually hasn't, but I've been meaning to get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is a mastermind when it comes to finance and figuring all that stuff out. So, he's like me. He's not a coder. He's not doing that kind of stuff. But as far as building a business, he understands how that works, and he's pretty brilliant.
So true.
Yeah. Of course, Matt Cromwell will be awesome. I mean, I'm pitching you on my bosses. They're big guys. They're the ones that have biggest influence over my life right now. But
I've talked to Matt on here and Devin and Kevin.
Yep.
But I haven't got Ben or Jason yet.
I'll tell you what, Ben would be another good one because Ben understands what customer service is all about and customer support. And WordCamp talks about it all the time because he is just super at what he does.
Okay.
Him and Sam both would be awesome.
Oh, Sam. Yeah. Great. Yeah. Great suggestion.
Sam actually has only been working in WordPress a couple of years.
That's true.
It's his second career after being a firefighter for many years and hurting himself.
Right.
So he gave a keynote at WordCamp Orlando a couple of years ago about how he changed careers from firefighting to WordPress. So it's a fascinating conversation to have with him.
Oh, it is. I talked to him, I don't know, must have been last year, maybe last year in Miami about when he was making that transition. And it was just fascinating. And he's a very interesting fellow. Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
I would say Rachel Cherry, if you haven't talked to Rachel.
I have, yeah. She's great. Yeah.
There you go. I'm trying to figure out who else. And I'll tell you somebody who you might not know is Ben Dunkel. So Ben Dunkel is an artist, and he is one of the drivers behind the WordPress community in Buffalo. And he teaches at Canisius College. He teaches design work, and he understands WordPress for artists in a way that nobody else does. So he'd be somebody worth reaching out to.
Okay. Yeah. That sounds like a great conversation we'll have in the future.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're kind of winding down here. I'd like to give you an opportunity to just share how people might get in touch with you if they were so inclined.
So I can be found, if you want to email me, I'm Michelle@GiveWP.com. I'm on Twitter @Michelle Ames, and pretty much anywhere else @Michelle Ames as well. So you can find my WordCamp talks on slideshare.net/Michelle Ames. And that's pretty much me everywhere. It's just @Michelle Ames.
Okay, cool. Yeah, everybody reach out to Michelle. Thank her for coming on the show and the opportunity to learn more about her. Definitely look Michelle up if she's at an event. She's a lot of fun to hang out with. And
if you want a good laugh, go to thedailybedhead.com.
Thedailybedhead.com. Right. Yeah.
That is my personal blog where I post a picture of what I look like when I wake up in the morning with my daily thoughts.
Oh boy. Yeah.
So if you want a good laugh, take a look at that.
That's super great. What a great idea.
So much fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's wrapping up episode 178. Michelle, thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been a lot of fun, and I really appreciate it.
All right.